The Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. So, a little introduction here. The Pilgrims are heading to Canterbury, England, to visit the cathedral, which is the Archbishop's seat. They gather at a place called the Tabard Inn. The Tabard Inn, which is in London, in Southwark, London, which is southeast of London, to prepare for the journey. The innkeeper proposes an entertainment for them on the road, a story contest. Each one of them will tell a story along the road while they're on the road walking to Canterbury, and he who tells the best story, will get a free meal at the Tabard Inn when they come back. They head off as a group, and the tales begin to be told. Each of the stories from there on in the book is told by one of the participants. There are prologues before and after each story, telling a little of the introduction made by the person, as well as conversations between the pilgrims. Some of the prologues are really long, and some of them are very short. Okay, so we're going to move on to the first story that we're going to be reading, which is The Wife of Bath's Tale. So, as a prologue, the Wife of Bath's Tale has an unusually long prologue, probably one of the longest ones in the Canterbury Tales. The prologue is twice as long as the story itself. And I'm going to summarize it for you. The wife of Bath has had 5 husbands. She doesn't see anything wrong with that, as they all died on her, although she does get rebuked often for it. She doesn't understand Jesus' rebuke at the well of the Samaritan woman who had had 5 husbands, but instead prefers the idea that we should be fruitful and multiply. She tells the story of her 5 husbands. She worked to try to gain sovereignty over them. She wanted to be in charge of them. Unfortunately, just as this was achieved, they would unfortunately die, and then she would have to move on to a new husband and get him trained and start the process of training over again. With her final husband, the 5th one, she was twice his age. She was 40, he was 20, and he spent all of his time reading books about evil women out loud to her. She hated this, and she got in a fist fight with him over it, and after getting punched, she pretended to die. When he saw that, he was so sad and promised her anything if she only would live. And so she did live, and that is how she subdued him. From then on, he did whatever she said. So her story that she's going to tell now is about how everyone in the world would be happier and better off if women were in charge of the marriage rather than men. So you can see how that relates to her own life's experience. So, in The Wife of Bath's Tale, a knight who rapes a maiden is sentenced to death, but the queen offers him a chance to live by answering the question of what women desire most, leading to a journey where he learns that women desire sovereignty over their husbands, and then he must marry an old woman to fulfill his promise. Okay, so, the crime and the sentence. A knight in King Arthur's court rapes a maiden, and the court sentences him to death. Queen Guinevere intervenes, though, offering, and she asks King Arthur, first of all, if she can judge the case and decide what's going to happen to the man rather than him, and he allows that. And the queen offers the knight a chance to live if he can answer one question, and that is, what women desire most. He has 1 year to find the answer, and he's allowed to travel the countryside and ask people and come up with the best answer. Here she is, passing judgment. The knight's quest. So the knight embarks on a year-long journey, questioning woman to find the answer. Unfortunately, every woman that he asks the question of what do women desire most has a different answer. There's no two answers that are the same. So he has no idea what the correct answer is. And after a year, he's heading back to the court to admit his failure to the queen and submit himself to execution. But near the end of the year, he sees 24 maidens in the distance. He rides towards them, but they disappear when he approaches. All that is left is one old woman who agrees to tell him the answer to what women desire most, if he agrees to do anything she asks in return. Desperate, because he's going to be put to death if he doesn't find the answer, he agrees. She reveals that women desire sovereignty over their husbands, or that is, the ability to have control over their husbands. In America, we might say that the woman would wear the pants in the family. She's in charge of the family. The knight returns to the castle and Queen Guinevere, and he correctly answers the question. All the ladies of the court agree that what women most want is to have sovereignty or control over their husbands. He is acquitted of his charge and set free. But then the old woman, who has followed him there, tells the queen of the promise he made her if she helped him answer the question, and she publicly states that she wants to marry him. And so that her request to marry him is basically she's cashing in on his offer to do anything that she requested. The knight at first tries to get her to take something else, offering anything else instead, in fact. He offers his possessions, everything he has, but then he reluctantly agrees to marry the old woman in exchange for her answer, which had saved his life. The choice. After the marriage, the old woman sees that the knight is not happy and asks him why. This is when they're back at home. She asks if he would rather have a young, beautiful, but potentially unfaithful wife, or an old, ugly, but faithful wife. So this is his choice, a faithful but ugly wife, or a beautiful but unfaithful wife. Of course, neither one of them would be very good choices, right? So the knight has to make a decision. The knight, recognizing the value of letting his wife have the choice, gives her the power to decide. He says, I leave it in your hands. And once she is, by doing that, he gives her the sovereignty. He gives her control of the marriage, so to speak, of making the decisions in the marriage. And she at once transforms into a young, beautiful, and faithful wife. And they kiss 1,000 times. The moral of the story, it seems, is that everything works out better if the woman is in charge of a marriage and gets to make the decisions in a marriage. This is very much in line with what the wife of Bath stated in the prologue. Story number 2, from the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer, The Nun's Priest's Tale. In Geoffrey Chaucer's The Nun's Priest's Tale, the vain rooster Chanticleer, a character in a beast fable, is tricked by a fox, and after ignoring a dream, warning and succumbing to flattery, leading to his capture. Using flattery, he is ultimately able to escape. Setting and character. The tale is set on a farm belonging to a poor widow and her 2 daughters. Where Chanticleer, the rooster with 7 wives, or hens, lives in relative splendor. Chanticleer has a nightmare about a beast, later revealed to be a fox, who will attack him. He wakes up and tells the other hens about it, but his favorite hen, Pertalote, dismisses it as merely a dream. Chanticleer then gives a talk about how dreams can actually portend future events, and cites authorities that says that dreams do have meaning. He first tells a story about 2 travelers who find lodging in a town, one in a stable and one in an inn. The one in the inn has a dream during the night 3 times that his friend is calling to him that he is being murdered in the stable, but he dismisses it as just a dream and goes back to sleep all 3 times. In the final dream, the friend tells him where to find his body, in a dung cart near the gate. In the morning, his friend is nowhere to be found, but he does find the dung cart at the gate of the city, exactly as described by his friend in the dream. He calls for the police, and the body is discovered in the cart, and the murderers are punished. So in that case, the dream was correct. He tells the second story about about 2 men who were planning a trip across the sea by boat. One of them has a dream that the journey should be delayed or they will die in a storm. The other says it is only a dream, and he goes himself, leaving the dreamer behind. But that boat sprung a leak and sunk to the bottom of the sea, and all were killed. So in that case, the dream was correct. He further cites the story of Joseph in the Bible, who interprets dreams that Pharaoh's servants told to Joseph and how their dreams came true. Not to mention the fact that Pharaoh's own dream about the 7-year famine came true also. However, after all that, Pertalote makes Chanticleer feel better, and he hops down from his perch and begins his daily routine of eating kernels of corn and clucking at his hens and forgetting about dreams. There's a fox that's hiding nearby, though, and Chanticleer sees him, starts to run, but the fox talks kindly to him and flatters him, praising his beautiful voice and lineage. The fox says, "I actually am not here to eat you. I'm just here to listen to your beautiful singing." He makes Chanticleer feel proud and complacent. He says that Chanticleer sings just as beautifully as his father and mother, who were previously, quote, guests in the fox's house. He wishes only to hear Chanticleer's beautiful crowing. Chanticleer, blinded by the vanity and the fox's flattery, gives a magnificent crow with all the force he has, eyes closed. While he does this, the fox seizes him. Throws him over his back and runs away with him. He is being chased by the widow and her daughters, along with all the barnyard animals chasing the fox. They chase the fox to try to stop him. Chanticleer, using his wit, tricks the fox into releasing him. While he's being carried away, he tells the fox that he should turn around and shout insults at his pursuers, saying they can never catch him. The fox thinks this is a great idea, and he does this, but as soon as he opens his mouth to taunt his pursuers, Chanticleer escapes and flies safely into a tree. The fox tries to get him to come back down, saying that he has repented and will be nice. But the rooster has learned his lesson and refuses to be tricked twice. The tale ends with a moral lesson: never trust a flatterer, emphasizing the dangers of vanity and gullibility. There's also a side thought that it might be good to pay attention to your dreams. And thirdly, the storyteller suggests that it is not a good idea to trust the judgment of woman, Pertolote in this case, who advised him that dreams were no good and that he should just go about his day, as that tends to get a man in trouble, and he cites the examples such as Adam and Eve. Notice that the third moral of the story, that you shouldn't trust the judgment of a woman, is almost the exact opposite of the moral from the wife's tale, which is that the woman should have all the decision-making power in marriage.